everyone, I'm Reena, and this is Resonant Space. So, the idea I want to talk about today is write the piece that's not due next. So writing music, you have these very long timelines where someone will ask you to write a piece, and then you have all this time that's open that you can just structure any way you want. But at the end of that time, there better be a piece for orchestra there, or there better be a piece for choir just at the end of that long unstructured time. And it can sometimes be really terrifying because you know that there's just this one deadline that's there, and your whole life has to be geared towards finishing the piece by that date. So I always find that there's this shift that takes place in my thinking when I'm working on the piece that's due next. And I start thinking about the deadline. I start thinking about, okay, how many days am I away from this deadline? I still have 3 minutes of music to write. So if I write, 20 seconds of music every day and I'm this many days away, I'll be able to get to the deadline. And of course, that's the way to be the least creative, right? You're just locking yourself down into these systems that really don't address the fact that you have to do something that's inherently creative. But I find that it's really sometimes hard for me to get out of that headspace because, I know that the commissioner is really eager to see the piece. I know people are emailing me, asking me about where it is. I know that there are so many people who I want to please, and that takes away from just my own creative agency. So sometimes I solve this by working on the piece that's not due next. So I'm looking at my life right now, and I have, a number of commissions that are coming up after the commission that I'm writing right now. And when I think about those commissions, the deadlines seem so far away and seem so arbitrary because there's something else that's before that, right? So when I'm thinking about, say, I'm going to write this piano trio next season, and I'm so excited about it. And to me, it just still feels like this fun passion project because the deadline is so far away. So occasionally I'll just start working on this piano trio, and I'll have an idea, and I'll just spend all this time, fleshing out this idea. And it feels very indulgent, and it feels like I can indulge my biggest creative self because I'm not worried about the deadline. And then I take that energy and I apply it to the piece that I am writing at this very moment. And then that piece suddenly feels like I'm thinking bigger. I have this bigger space that I'm working in, and I'm not so constricted by the fact that the deadline is coming up really soon. So if you're working toward the deadline, maybe try this week. Try just thinking of a piece, maybe a piece that you have due in the future, and just begin to imagine that piece. Imagine what it might sound like. Imagine what might be the first things you put on the paper, and maybe you'll see this really beautiful, expansive work emerging. And maybe then you can take that back and apply it to the piece that you're currently writing that you might be a few days away from the deadline of. And if you don't have a piece coming up, just imagine what piece you'd like to write. That's actually a great opportunity. However impractical it is, even if it doesn't become anything, it's really a wonderful exercise to just be able to think really big about what you want your work to sound like without the terror of an approaching deadline. So this week, try writing the piece that's not due next.